its political spectrum, reaching you live from the beautiful hills of Ibiakuran. And of course, before we went on that break, I told you that we're going to talk a little bit, not a little bit, we're going to look into the case of 2023, what it holds for Akwa Ibom State as a state, and of course, what kind of leader do the people of Akwa Ibom State want? Those are the issues that I've made raised here. And of course, with me to say more on this conversation is an immediate past councillor, Ward 9, Ibom local government area, and he is Joseph Udoh. So good to have you, Joseph Udoh. Good to have you in our studios today.
Thank you.
All right. Akwa Ibom State, looking at it from 1999, we had Governor Victor Otta, who came in with the master plan of Akwa Ibom State, and of course he had set things in perspective. Then we came to the era of Godswill Akpabio, former Governor Godswill Akpabio. Of course, that regime was known for its uncommon transformation agenda, which dealt more on infrastructural development, and now to the present administration of Governor Udoh Gabriel Emmanuel. Of course, we have seen issues of industrialization and all of that.
Definitely.
Of course, what is the next step? What is the next leader? What is Akwa Ibom looking at come 2023?
Well, when you talk about the next leader Akwa Ibom is looking at, I presume you're talking about 2023 as it concerns governorship election.
Okay.
Well, like you rightly said, Obong Otta, His Excellency Godswill Akpabio, and then the current governor of Akwa Ibom State, it's been a continuum of a process. What's this process? The Akwa Ibom spirit. What is Akwa Ibom known for? The peace, the infrastructural development, the belief that we'll know where we were and we're definitely going to get there. Now, I think Akwa Ibom State needs a governor who is proactive. I think Akwa Ibom State needs a governor who understands the Akwa Ibom problem. What do I mean by the Akwa Ibom problem? A governor who understands where it bites us hard. That's the area of unemployment, if I must say. The current governor, His Excellency Udoh Emmanuel, has done a whole lot to alleviate unemployment, especially from the angles of the youth. Of course, you can see booming industries, most especially the one that I'm so proud of is the aviation sector. The next governor should be somebody who must sustain those infrastructural developments. A governor who understands that we are here, but we're not there yet. A governor who understands that there has been a blueprint led by the previous administration that must be continued. And above all, a governor that is going to integrate Akwa Ibom, unify us peacefully, not a governor that will disintegrate this. I am very much particular as a young person about who becomes the next governor of Akwa Ibom State. Why? Because I think collectively, in an atmosphere of peace, Akwa Ibom State can do better. And I believe we'll get there.
In an atmosphere of peace.
Definitely.
Okay, now, looking at that, those qualities you've rightly mentioned, do you think a person has been found? Because we have already seen aspirants. We've seen people come up from the APC and the PDP. A lot of names, a lot of people who have been through leadership processes at different dimensions. Do you think at any point we have seen our next governor somewhere around?
Well, let me not be very precise. I'm not God. But yet, let's pray. In trying to look out for who becomes the next governor, there are areas I think we should overlook. First of all, let's not overlook the area of who has the Akwa Ibom interest at heart, who understands the Akwa Ibom problem. And then, of course, I'm going to divert a little bit to politics because I happen to come from a political background, having served as a councillor under the current administration. I think I understand the grassroots, and that's where it hits most because definitely every town, every city is actually a village, and if the grassroots is being impacted upon, I think the Akwa Ibom story would come out well. Now, back to have we found a successor? I'm a member of the PDP, and I believe the governor will contribute a whole lot to who he feels will become a successor. Why am I bringing that forward? It's a continuum. We need somebody who understands and who can sustain what the current administration have started. Away from that, we talk about zoning. It's very important for the sake of equity and peace for we to look at zoning.
Talking about zoning is a factor. Yeah, it's a factor. And we know that it has been zoned to Udoh senatorial district.
Definitely.
Is there any sub-zoning in PDP, micro-zoning to any particular zone?
There's a
here?
word I think we should use. It's called streamlining. Let me explain what that means. Zoning, irrespective of people's opinion, is meant to strengthen the internal democracy of a party, and by extension, the internal democracy of governance. What that means is when a particular area, sector, senatorial districts, federal constituency, if you might put it, goes for the plum job, the number one job of the state, it's pertinent you allow some other sector to go for the sake of equity. Now, let me come down a little bit. Udoh senatorial district, yes. But you have to look inward. You have to look at streamlining. You have to look at microzoning, if you put it that way. Within Udoh senatorial district, there are federal constituencies. So I think the viable question is this: which federal constituency in Akwa Ibom State is yet to produce a governor? I'll give you a quick answer without being sentimental. I think the right federal constituency there, in all amount of equity, is it to be on a federal constituency. And of course, you look inwards. When we say it will be on a federal constituency, we're not saying it has to go to a particular person. We're only saying within the confines of it to be on a federal constituency, do we have someone eligible? Do we have someone matured politically? Do we have someone who understands the Akwa Ibom story? Do we have someone who is going to move us to the destination we want to go? I think we do.
Okay.
Very brilliant set of people.
Now, you say we do very brilliant set of people, and we have seen quite a number of them come from that angle. The likes of Senator Basi Albert, the likes of Senator Itainang, and of course the likes of Honorable Nyabong Essien, who are still coming from that angle. Is there a way there could be a consensus from that angle if this must be achieved?
Well, those names you mentioned are very specific names as it concerns Ibom local government, which by the grace of God I happen to be from. Well, I think the people of Ibom, we know our stories. We know ourselves. Those are our brothers, and of course, at one point or the other, our leaders. We know them, and then we know how beneficial it could be if they're in government. But at the same time, when you talk about a consensus, well, the best consensus at this point is track record. The best consensus at this point is ideological. Who understands our problem? Who is going to maintain our peace? See, make no mistakes about it, without sounding very specific. The only asset a politician has is goodwill. And over time, you've been around. We've seen the areas you're good at. We've seen the areas at which we can benefit from. I tell you this, Akwa Ibom people, we've not forgotten.
Okay.
Sometimes the truest test of popularity is not how notorious you could be, or how violent you could be, or how promising you could be. Sometimes popularity is within the structure of politics. Sometimes popularity is our collective commonwealth. You see, it's not a one man's job. It's a collective commonwealth. It's what we desire as a people. And if we as a people, looking at the areas of it will be on a federal constituency, in one voice would say, this is who we feel is good for the job. I think that too should be considered.
Away from zoning, let's look at the Akwa Ibom, the project. We've had the area of infrastructure, policies, and all of that. What do you think are the basic things that should be brought in addition or to commemorate with what is already on ground? Okay,
thank you very much. I'll be very brief on that. I might sound very funny, but I'm still going to sound funny nevertheless. The most important aspect of democracy, talking about dividends of democracy, is not just infrastructural developments. It might be surprising to say that. But the truth is, democracy also equally accounts for respect to fundamental human rights. Democracy also imbibes respect to rule of law and of the truth. In the last 6 years, the Udoh Gabriel administration has actually done a whole lot on that. We've seen infrastructural development, which of course the previous administration started and the current administration is consolidating upon. We've equally seen the growth of industries, most especially the aviation industries, that has created job employment and all that has drawn Akwa Ibom State closer to other parts of Nigeria, that has made us a force to reckon with, especially in aviation. At the same time, we've also seen respect to fundamental human rights. We've had a situation where people can talk about the government and then they are not afraid to go back to their house and sleep. That's democracy. That's the core value of democracy. Ability where you can constructively criticize a government without having to tell yourself to relocate. I think going forward, Akwa Ibom deserves that. Akwa Ibom deserves that. And we're going to have that, I believe. I strongly believe that we're going to have that.
Political rights refers to an individual's ability to participate in the civic and political life of the society and state without fear of discrimination or repression, and it ties closely to citizen status. Such rights include not only the rights to vote in an election, but also the rights to join a political party, run for office, and participate freely in political rallies, events, or protests. Political struggle is rarely the subject of political interest.
They're all angry, but I need you guys to move back a little bit.
It is so closely intertwined with the phenomenon of politics that it does not attract attention as an independent subject. The phenomenon of political struggle is always talked about, but what it is, its essence, and the content goes by the wayside. In modern conditions, political struggle is a complex socio-political phenomenon amid at the transition of power to a certain political group in order to achieve certain political, economic, military, or other interests. However, it is a process that is not limited to conflict but includes the phase of formation of goals through propaganda and their implementation through the power status. Interestingly, citizens of a democratic society like Nigeria have the right to oppose the government when it fails to protect their interests. All these civic, economic, and political rights are granted and guaranteed by the state, in fact, by a democratic state, to all its citizens without any discrimination.
This conversation is live on our different social media handles on Facebook and, of course, on Instagram with the handle at Spectrum TV NG. Of course, to get also more information on our website at www.spectrumtelevision.ng. Yes, I'm still here with Honorable Joseph Udoh. Now, and you've talked about quite a number of things. You've also made mention of the fact that Akwa Ibom should be looking at someone who respects the rule of law. But away from that, if you get to the streets, you've said you're a grassrooter.
Definitely.
And you have heard, I'm certain you've heard things like Abiyama, all those kind of slangs. Now, how do you think that can be pictured or can be taken care of in the next administration?
Thank you very much. But Abiyama Sorobi Baba. And I'll be depending on how we look at it. This is what I mean. The government does more than handing out peanuts. The government does more than handing out honorariums. The government can equally give us sustainable means of livelihood. And trust me, now than ever, the current administration is doing something about it. The current administration might not necessarily hand you fish, which might be a norm in some political space. Okay. But they have provided an avenue where you could be a good fisherman so that whenever you need fish, you know where to get it. Well, I think a whole lot of factors can equally be considered when you look at that phrase, Ebiongoba. Topmost on that list is not just governmental. Topmost of that list is also the pandemic. If you're a business person and you go all out to do something, you understand the terrain was rough. For instance, myself, away from politics and the fact that I have a whole lot to do with the grassroots, I equally handle some personal jobs as it pertains electrical installations. and I know how 219, 220 was. But trust me, the improvement is coming. Trust me, the improvement is around. And if you ask those who said Gebiong some years ago, they might still say Gebiong but with a little bit of hope. It's that hope we look forward to. It's that hope that matters in 2023.
Yeah, talking about that hope, we've seen that the society generally, due to the pandemic, has drifted towards ICT and all of that. Do you think the next government would, maybe while searching for who takes over from Governor Dom Emmanuel, how would they capture issues that has to do with global best practices, issues with international relations, issues with looking at ways to diversify economy, not just agriculture, but ICT-wise, where young people can be more, more engaged?
Young people are the foundations of any society. Any society that fails to engage the youngest of their generation, the energy-driven generation, the people who constitute the workforce, the people who have the energy to run around. Any society who fails to do that is already planning to fail. Well, young people, like you rightly said, like us, are more ICT-driven. This is the age of the internet. This is the age where you can get a whole lot done with smartphones and all that. I am very confident that the next administration would not need to be told about ICT, given the foundation that has been laid by this current administration. See, the truth is, politics is continuing. The truth is, leadership is continuing. The truth is, no administration operates in isolation. There must be a connectivity, a looking back, a process. What did the previous administration do in the areas of ICT? What did they do in the areas of the youths? How did they engage their youths so that they can continue from there? Of the truth, Udoh Gabriel's administration, the current administration, has done a whole lot of youths, has done a whole lot of engaging the youths. Now, if you check crops of people who are involved in government, from appointees to elders, you're definitely going to see that the government is not doing bad. For instance, let me use myself. I was actually quite young in 2017 when I had the privilege of serving this administration as a councillor. The truth is, for those who saw my emergence, it was something that was exciting, given the fact that a young man would be in such a position to be allowed to at least lead at the grassroots. It's something. And I believe going forward with that kind of energy, the youth will be fully engaged. I know so, I believe so.
Okay, quite a number of things you have said there, but in a tag, what direction of the sector do you think the next government should focus on? There's always a little bit of this and that, infrastructure, academic and all of that. Which area specifically? Because from inception of democracy, we have seen each government taking one area of a sector and, as a major aspect of its government. Now, looking at 2023, we have had infrastructure, like I mentioned before. We have also had industrialization. Which aspects should the next administration capture in full force?
Thank you very much. I think it wouldn't be a very bad idea to look at agriculture and commerce. Let me be very precise about that. There are a whole lot of untapped resources when you look at agriculture. My mindset and my projection might have a whole lot to do based on where I'm from. Now, agriculture remains a very seriously untapped area of Akwa Ibom State's economy. Yes, oil is very viable, but at the same time, oil is very regular. I think away from oil, we should look at agriculture. We should look at the axis that has to do with econo, Ibiono axis. I mean, the agricultural potentials is vast, from rice to cassava to okra, what have you. Now, looking at agriculture will equally encourage the growth of small and medium-scale businesses, which will allow individuals who are capable of what they are doing to be able to afford to access soft loans or grants from government, of course.
How viable would that be? Because I've seen that this particular government have dived a little bit on that with the tomato and, of course, coconut refinery, which is still ongoing. How viable would will that be, or what mechanism do you think could be put in place to make it more effective?
The government are doing something about it right now, and trust me, it's not just propaganda. It's not. You need to take a walk to those areas, and then you would see the number of potentials, the kind of potentials we're talking about. But then I don't want to be very comfortable going forward. If we've been able to start something as it pertains to agriculture in a scale that has never been witnessed in the previous administration, I think we should keep on hitting on that. It's very promising. It's very promising, and I know that can be a major factor, not just oil.
Well, many thanks for your thoughts on that. You saying Akwa Ibom State should focus more or should tilt towards agriculture as the next source of revenue generation come 2023. Well, thanks for coming on the show. It was nice having you around.
Thank you very much.